registrations are going to turn into fraudulent votes, and candidly, people are tired of waiting. The national news media, editorial boards around the state, and others have been reporting daily on Secretary of State Brunner's mismanagement of this election. It's time for Jennifer Brunner to end the partisan maneuvering and simply to do her job. That's what we're asking here today, once again, for her to do, to do what is right, to do the duty that she was elected to do, and to provide this information to the county boards of elections in a usable format, so that at the end of the day, the voters can have confidence in the election that will take place 11 days from now. I'd be happy at this point to take any questions you may have.
Kevin, why not refile?
Look, we think at this point, while we will continue to fight, we will continue to look for other avenues. There are other legal avenues that we could pursue, maybe county by county. We have thought about that. We have weighed those options. At this point, those options are more disruptive to the county boards of elections. Those options are more disruptive at the county level than what we think is the right thing to do at this point in time. So we're going to continue to fight. We're going to look for other avenues. We are encouraged that Leader Boehner has asked the Department of Justice to get involved. For those of you who haven't seen the letter and I haven't read it yet, Leader Boehner has sent a letter also to the President, asking him essentially to encourage the U.S. Attorney General and the DOJ to get into this and make sure that all 50 states are complying with the Help America Vote Act. And so we're pursuing all remedies that we can possibly find in order to compel the Secretary of State to simply do her job, provide the information that she's required to provide to the county boards of election.
Do you support Boehner's effort to go to the DOJ?
Yeah, I do. I support. Look, I support any effort to get this information out. What we're talking about is critical information, that goes to the heart of voter confidence, that goes to the heart of the integrity of our election system, not just in Ohio, but in 49 other states. And look, let's talk about this information for a second or two. The information, the information on the 200,000 mismatched voter registration forms, we understand much of that is going to be clerical and technical in nature. That is going to be a middle initial that is on one record and not on another. It is going to be an address that has a transposed number. We understand that. That information needs to be cleaned up in the voter registration rolls, whether it's this election or the next election when that person votes. Ultimately, it's going to have to get corrected. But number two, in light of the fact that ACORN and other groups have admitted to turning in fake and fraudulent voter registration forms, to have information about mismatched voter registrations, and to be able to say that there are 200,000 mismatched voter registration forms, and yet not be willing to share it, and yet use taxpayer dollars to conceal it, and yet fight every step along the way to provide that information in a usable format to the county boards of elections is shameful.
She said this morning that she didn't understand why you kept asking, I say why the GOP, why you want this particular year instead of 07, 06.
Look, I'd be happy to, if I thought she could provide any of the information, I'd take whatever she's willing to give at this point. We looked at 2008 because any of the registrations that went through 2007, we would assume they would have been through a process, that they would have been through an election process at the vote. People would have voted and voted in the 2007 elections, but it seemed like a reasonable and logical cutoff point to not create a huge issue with the local boards and the Secretary of State. If she's willing to provide information back to 2007 and 2006 and beyond, along with the 2008 information, and provide it today, I'll walk over and pick up the disk and the data from her personally.
If the voter registration doesn't match the data that's been given to the Secretary of State, what should the county board of elections do?
Well, I think there's, well, first of all, the Secretary of State needs to provide that information to the board, and it needs to be provided in a useful and uniform format. Number two, the Secretary needs to provide a directive that would instruct the boards of elections on what to do with this information, so that it is dealt with in a uniform fashion, so that county boards of elections aren't left trying to figure out from county to county what to do with this information. But let's just say it's a transposed number, it's a middle initial that's on one record or not on the other. There's really not much to be done. Some of those changes can be made in the poll book. Some of those changes won't require anything other than, okay, I see you have your middle initial on your driver's license, but you don't on your voter registration form. There's nothing to do. That person shows the ID, the addresses match up, and they simply go vote their regular ballot. Where we have greater flaws and greater problems with the registration form, whether it's because a driver's license number doesn't match up, the address is wrong, the last four of the social security number don't match up, that person should vote a provisional ballot. The provisional ballot is the communication vehicle between the polling location and the Board of Elections, so that to verify information about the registration. Now, I think the Secretary of State has fallen into has picked up the left wing talking points about provisional ballots. Provisional ballots are an important part of this process. Provisional ballots help make sure that only properly registered individuals have the opportunity to vote. The other option would be simply let people with questionable registrations vote a regular ballot. That's not fair to the people who are legally registered who have cast their ballot. So many of them will be clarified and taken care of without any problem, without any need for any sort of additional information being communicated. However, we know there will be some that would be required to vote a provisional ballot.
So everyone would be able to vote. Only the most questionable voters, if you will, would have their ballots sort of quarantined.
In no way does this information disenfranchise a voter. In no way will anyone be denied an opportunity to cast a ballot. In no way. No uncertain terms. No one can be turned away from the polls. And anybody who's taken out that old tired line about disenfranchisement and voter suppression ought to be ashamed of themselves, especially if it's a statewide elected official. In no way will anyone be turned away from the polls. In no way will anybody be denied an opportunity to cast a ballot. Somebody can show up, say I'm legally registered, get the ballot, and if they can prove that, if they're on the rolls, if they have ID, they'll vote a regular ballot. If not, they vote a provisional ballot. The provisional ballot is the protection system. The provisional ballot is the protection system to make sure that only those legally, properly registered ballots that are cast on election day actually get counted in the final tabulation.
Can you explain